A Hall of Fame basketball coach, looking back at his postseason record, noticed something entirely counterintuitive. His teams had a higher winning percentage when they had only one day to prepare for an opponent, compared to when they had two. With a single day of prep, the clock forced him to prioritize. He had to distill the strategy down to its absolute essence. Given 48 hours, the temptation crept in to teach everything, and he ended up overloading his players with excess information. You see this paradox all over sports. Brad Stevens, now an executive for the Boston Celtics, took a college team to the Final Four in his early 30s. Looking back years later, he was relieved he didn't write a book about it, realizing he still had a deep lack of understanding regarding how to actually teach. The default instinct for anyone in charge, a coach, a manager, a parent, is to step in, correct mistakes, and chase immediate short-term results. We see a flaw and we want to fix it right now, even if that quick fix stunts long-term development. Building an elite group requires looking past the daily error correction and physical load management. Instead, you have to treat the team like a complex collective brain that you are actively programming. Look at this technical setup in a standard film room. We take athletes who spend hours managing their physical bodies, sit them down, and show them a two-dimensional top-down projection of a game. We then ask them to mentally translate those flat, distant tactical cues into the three-dimensional reality of a high-stress physical competition. Cognitive scientists who study this environment have found a glaring flaw. In the vast majority of these sessions, about 75 to 80% of the time, the focus is entirely corrective. It's a highlight reel of what went wrong: poor defensive spacing, missed rotations, or bad positioning. The science suggests we have the ratio entirely backwards. To help a human brain make rapid decisions in a chaotic environment, you don't show it the errors. You dedicate 75% of your time to showing absolute perfection. It's about building a mental model. Take youth soccer players raised in the Spanish development system. From an early age, they watch thousands of examples where a player takes only 1 or 2 touches on the ball. That rhythm becomes deeply ingrained in their minds as the correct way to play. When you have a pristine mental model hardwired into your brain, it acts like a subconscious alarm. You don't have to actively scan for problems. Instead, your brain flows along with the correct pattern, and the moment a single element falls out of sync, your attention is instantly drawn to the disruption. The true purpose of studying film isn't to shame a player for missing an assignment. The goal is to repeatedly expose the entire group to a shared picture of success, embedding that image so deeply that making the right choice becomes pure instinct. Once the team shares a visual model, the next step is building the linguistic engine. Elite groups operate as their own isolated microcultures, and like any distinct culture, they define themselves through a private language. Top leaders actively invent highly specific vocabulary for their teams. They coin distinct terms to identify and praise unselfish, off-the-ball actions, the kind of invisible work that usually goes unnoticed but keeps the system running. This relies on an evolutionary quirk. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans survived by sitting closely around campfires, sharing information through oral narratives. Because of this, human brains possess what psychologists call cognitive privilege. We are structurally wired to pay superior attention to stories, limits, confers vital survival information, and cements an individual's sense of belonging to the tribe. But even with a perfect visual model and a shared language, the entire architecture can collapse under the sheer noise of immediate outcomes and external expectations. Look closely at this specific moment on the court. To filter out the noise, one coach uses a specific tactic during film review. He cuts the video exactly while the ball is still in the air, right before it reaches the hoop. By freezing the frame before the result is known, the players are forced to evaluate the core quality of their shot selection. They have to decide if it was the right decision without the bias of whether the ball actually went in. It frames the sport as a long-term percentage game. Players like Kyle Lowry build entire championship careers on this logic, ignoring the noise of individual scoring stats in favor of unselfish, systemic execution that guarantees a higher win probability over time. Keeping a team committed to this quiet, unselfish process requires a specific social environment. Every single member has to feel visible, even when they aren't the ones taking the shots. This is where the concept of the cold call gets redefined. In a group setting, asking a quiet bench player to explain the defensive spacing isn't a punitive trap to catch them off guard. Directing an inclusive question to someone on the periphery sends a profound psychological signal. It proves to that individual that their perspective matters and that their attention is vital to the survival of the group. High-functioning organizations operate as finely tuned, interconnected cognitive networks, existing as something far more complex than a simple collection of bodies executing tasks. That network relies on three pillars: a shared visual model of what perfection looks like, a private linguistic culture built on storytelling, and a social environment carefully insulated from the noise of immediate outcomes. These cognitive rules are completely agnostic. They dictate how a championship sports franchise operates, but they also apply directly to managing a corporate boardroom, running a hospital ward, or navigating a family dynamic. The challenge is that your default instinct will always fight against this. The urge to immediately point out mistakes in pursuit of a quick win will constantly threaten to dismantle the system you're trying to build. True leadership is about constructing this invisible architecture. It's the deliberate design of an environment where people know exactly what right looks like, speak a shared language, and truly believe they belong.